Oh, I didn't see you. Welcome back to Jonny Cooks. I've just had my nose in an old book, catching up with some literature, and I've forgotten to make supper. So why don't you follow me down to the kitchen where we can make something quick, easy, and a little bit indulgent. I'll see you there. Hi, and welcome back to the kitchen with Jonny Cooks. So I'm going to make tonight's supper in my favourite old nightshirt, washed my hands, rolled up my sleeves, and then I'll be taking my food upstairs with a glass of wine and relaxing. What are we going to eat? We're going to eat stuffed mushrooms. Yep, portobello mushrooms stuffed with an oozing blue cheese and sautéed leek filling, splashed with a little port wine and served with buttered crumbs and a balsamic glaze. Let's get cooking. So I'm going to make enough for just myself. 2 large portobello mushrooms stuffed with leeks. This is the size of the mushrooms that I'm going to be using. There's one, and there's the other. First of all, we're going to take our leek, cut it down the centre, and then slice it. In my favourite battered old pan, I've got about 50 grams of unsalted butter, which I'm going to melt. Now I'm going to add the sliced leeks. I'm now going to add about 75 to 100 grams of blue cheese. Any blue cheese you like. I'm using Roquefort and Saint-Agur. You can use Stilton, and if you don't like blue cheese, by all means use Camembert or Brie or any cheese you particularly like that melts well. We're just going to put that in with the leeks and melt it. Now that the cheese is beautifully melted, we are just going to splash in about 3 tablespoons of port. If you don't want to use port, or you don't like port, then red grape juice, unsweetened red grape juice, would be just as good. We've bubbled that mixture away until the liquid has evaporated a little bit. And now we are just going to bind it with a handful of breadcrumbs, white breadcrumbs, just 1 handful, maybe a little bit more. We're going to fold that in, season it with salt and pepper, and put it to one side. So here are my 2 mushrooms, and I want as wide an opening as possible to put as much filling in. So I'm just going to take the skin off. Yet another battered old pan. This time it's a small roasting pan, which the mushrooms fit in very snugly. Now we're just going to fill the mushrooms with the mix from the frying pan. We're now going to put these in the oven. So these 2 stuffed mushrooms have been in the oven for 10 minutes at 180 degrees. And now the important thing is to let them sit so that you can see all of these lovely juices coming out, and just occasionally you can drizzle them over. Just let them sit for 2 or 3 minutes while we do one last thing. Back to my battered old pan, which I've washed out while the mushrooms were in the oven. A little more butter, about 50 grams, unsalted. We're going to melt that. While the butter's melting, I've blitzed up in the Cuisinart a couple of slices of white breadcrumbs, some of which I used, of course, for the mushrooms earlier. And what's left over, I'm just going to fry off in this butter so we have some nice, crispy, golden breadcrumbs. Buttered crumbs. So here are my crispy, butter-indulgent crumbs. Let's assemble supper. Let's plate up the juicy mushrooms. Now let's add some of those rich, indulgent, buttered crumbs. So we have the soft, juicy, umami-flavoured mushrooms and the crispy, golden crumbs. We just need a couple of other flavours to finish this dish off. I'm just going to drizzle with a good old-fashioned but very good quality balsamic glaze. The sharp sweetness cuts through the rich umaminess of the Stilton, Roquefort or Santagur stuffed mushrooms. And finally, a sprinkling of chives. Not least because we eat with our eyes. And this fresh, verdant scallion flavour will be perfect. So there it is. Blue cheese, leek and port stuffed portobello mushrooms with buttered crumbs and balsamic glaze. Perfect for supper. Well, I want to thank you very much for putting up with me so late at night. It's time for me to take my supper upstairs. And I want to thank you for being here in the kitchen with Jonny Cooks. Until the next time, I'll see you very, very soon.